Hi, this is Carlos again from RC Advisor. This is the first prototype that I'm building for the Pickerel design, which is a flying wing with a targeted flying weight of about 8 ounces or half a pound. And I actually started building this morning. I cleared off my board and set everything up. I had to run out and get some wax paper because I guess I had run out since the last time I built an airplane. And it's even though it's a foam airplane, I build it just like I'm doing a kit. First I cut the pieces. This is a piece of foam with the paper still on. So I mark the paper, and I like doing it that way because in case I make a mistake, I'm just marking the paper. And I use my again my Sharpie ultra fine retractable marker for everything. So mark the paper. If I like how it looks, I cut it with the paper still on. So then I end up with a pile of parts, with the paper still on. So then if I'm happy with how everything's looking, I take my 70% alcohol, which is the inexpensive stuff, and really all I have to do is to just wet each side with the paper. It doesn't have to be soaked, it just has to be wet enough. So I wet each part. I have a garbage bag. I put everything in there, and work quickly because you don't want to be breathing the alcohol for too long. Try and open a door or something, get some air. Anyway, and half an hour is usually enough. You may want to leave it an hour in the garbage bag, but you can take it out and the paper pretty much peels off. If it's an old piece of foam board, it might stick in some places, but it's pretty easy, pretty painless. So anyway, so that gets all the foam parts ready. I use my little meter saw with meter bags to cut my dowels and my the spar and all of that. I have a little handy sanding board. Is actually made out of metal, with coarse sandpaper and fine on the other side, which you can tell I've had this for a long time. I probably need to replace it. So anyway, I pretty much get all my parts ready, and then I start gluing. I'm using the liquid nails perfect glue, which I'm really happy with. And so I tend to glue in sections. I'm using my glue stick. Here's my glue stick, which I'm using for my laminations, and really happy with that. And then I use the perfect glue for basically when I'm gluing the wood to the foam. And within half an hour you can probably handle it. After about an hour, it's probably going to be good enough that you can just go on. But if it's if you don't need to move it too much, within half an hour you can probably glue another piece to it. And that's what I did. I did it in sections and then I combined them. Let me give you a couple more tips about this. But this is the Pickerel design, and this is the main spar, which is a vertical piece of spruce. I have a inexpensive 8-inch 3mm dowel on the leading edges. You can see there, that's similar to Modifly. And Modifly didn't have a spar like this because it didn't need it, but I have done some other designs that had a spar and it worked really well. And this this is the nose, and I decided, this is something I talked about in the article. I was thinking of doing 3 layers, and I did, but then I made a mistake because I actually cut this in 2 pieces, thinking that the spar was going to go through, but the spar doesn't go. It's not that high because there's actually 3 layers here, and the spar is the height of 2 layers, or roughly. It's actually just a little bit taller. So if you look at the bottom, what I did is I glued the main spar and the other spars with the airplane upside down, because what that did is that it made the top of the airplane have the spar be flush, And generally speaking, you want the top of the airplane to be smoother than the bottom, because it's more important for lift. So I actually glued it like this. So then the spar is sticking out. I don't know. It's less, maybe 32nd of an inch, maybe maybe a millimeter out the bottom. But that's okay. And this is sticking out a little bit, and this is sticking out a little bit. So it's just a little bit taller. And I glued the round dowels to the bottom. So I glued them like this. And so they're really glued to the bottom piece of foam. Because a step that's going to be coming up very soon is that I'm going to actually sand the foam to give it a rounded airfoil shape. So I wanted the dowel to be on the bottom to help with that airfoil shape. And also you can see, maybe better to see, well, maybe from this angle, that all the wood is tied to each other. You got the, these are two big triangles here, but then you have this big heavy piece out back, and I think it's overkill. I mean, I needed to have a square piece that size. Here's the motor that I'm planning on using. So it's gonna go on like that. Again, it's a pusher design. And so I needed to have a piece that big at the back, but then didn't really need to go all the way to the spar. Probably not. How much weight would have saved, but it's also more complication. So I don't know. I debate whether this was the right decision to do, but it probably is. I'm probably gonna keep that in the design. A design change that I made kind of last minute, and these are the elevons, and they go right here, so they're gonna go up and down. I made these pieces a little bit wider. I think it called for 2 or 2.5 inches, but they're actually 5 inches. So this is the difference from the diagram that I did and I posted. And part of it is aesthetics. I just think it looks better, but it also just gives it a nicer overall look. But a big concern that I've had with this design is strength. With this huge wing area, keeping the weight low. So I made this a little bit wider to give it a little bit more strength, out to the elevons. So this is the other elevon that goes on the other side, and these two pieces are the vertical stabilizers. I'm not calling them, and they'll go like right here. I think it's just maybe an inch in from the elevon. And I'm not calling them rudders because I'm not planning on putting a servo on there. I mean, they're really just for directional stability. And it's like, how did I know how big to make them? I'm literally it's just a guess. I from my experience with other airplanes and other designs that I've done, this seemed like a good size. And I'm always keeping an eye out. I mean, I know I don't make the best looking airplane designs, but I always keep an eye out for designing something that looks reasonably good. And you don't want this to be totally out of proportion. I don't want it to be real tall, but I didn't want it to be huge. I like the look of having two, so they're gonna be like right here, like that. Of course, I'll be rounding them out. But I think they look good. Is that a good size? Do they need to be bigger? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up adding a third one here. That may not be a bad idea. So anyway, this is a work in progress. Another change that I made from the diagram, and this is also a spur of the moment change, is that I added this. Let me pick it up. Might be easier to see. But I added this small supports because the motor, where the motor goes, tends to be a high stress area back here. And even though this goes all the way to the spar and it's got a one layer foam on either side, I thought, gee, I don't want this thing breaking off, because who knows, even though it's at the back, it's a high stress area. So I added these two supports, and I really should have rounded them in the front. I didn't, but again, this is just a prototype, and this is the goal for this is quick and dirty. I mean, I'm just trying to get up in the air as soon as possible, just to see how well this thing is gonna fly. And pretty was definitely not on my to-do list. I mean, I'm keeping an eye for the aesthetics of it, but on this particular build, pretty is not a big deal. And in fact, you probably cannot see this, but the foam that I used was a little bit bent and a little bit crushed in the corners. But that's fine, that's good enough. And of course, I don't want to do a perfect build, because I know people that are going to be building this design they're probably not going to do a perfect build either. So I want to make mistakes, and I want to use foam that's not perfect, and have things be a little bit out of alignment and all of that, because that's how people are going to build it. I want to see how well they can tolerate building errors. But anyway, I have some really good news to report, and I just did this because I've been really curious to see how what the weight was going to be, because weight is a concern that I have. So right before I started shooting the video, I took out my scale, and that's a pretty good scale. It doesn't have, I think the resolution is just 1 gram, so it's not the best, but it's pretty good and pretty accurate. And here's a question for you: how do you take something that looks like this, this big, and put it on a small scale like this to weigh it? Because if I put it on here, I can't read the scale. The reading is under there somewhere. Who knows what it is? Well, here's a trick that might come in handy. This scale has a 0 button. Okay, so what I did is that I turned it on. I zeroed it out with it being empty, and then I took my big heavy bottle of alcohol, and I put it on here, and I zeroed it out again. Okay, so then I was able to put this on here and weigh it down with the big bottle of alcohol, and of course most of it is sticking out the back, but it's fine, because so then I was able to get a reading of just the airplane because I had zeroed it out. Hope that made sense. And now I can read the scale, and the really good news is the weight is exactly what I had predicted. If you look at my spreadsheet that I posted with the article, and you add up the weight for the wood and the foam, of course it is missing the elevons and the rotor, but this weigh almost nothing. But if you add up the weight in the spreadsheet, this is supposed to be 4.2 ounces, and that is exactly what it weighs. So I'm really happy because I already know the weight of the power system and the flight pack, and here's the stuff. I just set it aside, a couple of chip servos, and I've got a speed control and the motor with the mount, and I've got a battery in here. Let me pull it out. This battery, this is actually a pretty old battery, but it's 500 milliamp hour, even though it's actually doesn't have that capacity anymore. And here's a propeller. This is a 9. Oh wait, yeah, I know it's a 9 inches. Yeah, 9 by 3.8. So this is actually a little bigger. I'll probably be using an 8 by 3.8, and I have those also. So anyway, this is the Pickerel build. I think it's coming together really well. I think there's a very good chance I'm going to be test flying this tomorrow. There's no reason why I can't finish it up today. In fact, all the major assembling is done. I'll comment on the strength of it. I mean, I think the vertical spar is working really well. It's it's spruce, but I've used a spar like this before, and I was really happy. So that's not a surprise. I mean, a concern that I've had is that this joint is just these 2 pieces of wood. So it's a little bit of a weak joint, and in fact it's flexible right now, but it's also, I can see there's a gap in there. So I'm going to be adding some more glue. and that's a side effect of me gluing it from the bottom. And also the foam is a bit crushed, so it's not the cleanest joint. But I have, my feeling is that once the glue completely dries, the strength is not going to be an issue. But what I'm thinking, what I'm toying with is taking a leftover piece of that of the spruce spar. In fact, here's the leftover because it was 36, so this is about 6 inches, and just adding a brace on the bottom. It's not going to weigh much, and I'll bet it's going to make it really strong. So this is probably, I don't know, I'll see a little bit later how strong it's looking. If it still feels a little bit weak, I'll probably just glue it on just to play it safe, and then I'll sand the front to so that it's not getting snagged on things when it lands. So this is probably another small change that I'm gonna make to the design. I don't know if I need it, but otherwise, I mean, I think it's looking good. You know, I think it's a reasonably good looking design. Something else that I do is that I always try and add some color to one side of it, even if it's just a throwaway prototype, because it's just too hard to see in the air with both sides looking the same. So I'll probably do some quick brushes with some color just to have it look different. But otherwise, so far so good. You know, it's up to spec, and I got all the pieces going, and not much left to go. I think the final assembly should go pretty quick. So maybe next time I talk about this will be when I fly it.